So we're not gonna do the rest of chapter 9 in the Tomar Devorah. We're going to skip and finish off the Tomar Devorah, God willing, today with chapter 10. So after discussing and describing the different midos, different attributes of Hashem, and how one should apply them both with ourselves in our service of Hashem and in our interaction with other people. So the Tomar Devorah says as follows. Parak HaSiri, the 10th chapter. Tadir. Hey, Howard. How should a person connect themselves? Hey, Ahuva. So you missed last class, Ahuva. We were middle of Malchus.
I clicked on the video.
Okay,
Recording.
excellent, excellent. But we're not going to actually finish off the rest of Parak Shi.
Oh.
We're going to, you know what? Let's see if we can. We have basically two more classes. We can finish off the rest of the ninth of Malchus, and then we're going to have the kind of the summary of the whole Tomer Devorah. And then I think after we finish Tomer Devorah, those who want, I think I would like myself to learn is the Shar Bitachon of Rabbeinu Bechaya, the gate of trust, which everyone should learn at least once in their life. All right, so let's continue according to plan. We're in Perek Chi, the 9th Perek. We're going to have to understand the second part of what we're learning now in Hey Beth. What we're learning now, Malchus, is you have to understand where the Ramak is coming from. The Ramak is going to help us understand in our relationship to Hashem via our relationship with our spouse. So he says like this. We're on page Kuf Mem Ches in the Tomer Devorah of the Hebrew books. So he says, something a person has to take very much to heart, and you have to understand something, he says. That in order for a person to have a relationship with Hashem, they should be davik. Davik is a term used in the Torah as to cleave. We have different expressions used in the Torah about our connection to Hashem. And we know that everything in life, the way we see it in this world, is a reflection and really help us in understanding in how things are from the beginning. So if the system of how we reproduce and how we are supposed to live, right? What's the first commandment that Adam received from Hashem was he had Adam and Chava, and he said, "Okay, be fruitful and multiply. Go start a family." So that is the first mitzvah that he told him not to eat from the tree of knowledge, but the mitzvah saseh, the positive commandment was to be fruitful, multiply, and inhabit the earth and build families. So the Ramak is going to say, and this is not a statement to anyone who hasn't yet started a family or hasn't yet found that one, but this is the Ramak saying how it should be. That lasis shatia shchina dveki imoy, for a person to make that the shchina, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, should be together, cleaving with the person, and not just at a moment. V'lo tipar dimenu, and you shouldn't separate. That means you should always be together with God. It's a very strong term. Don't take it personal for those who are not yet married. But the Ramak says that a person who hasn't yet married, he's talking to the male, but the same applies to the female. A man who has not yet married a female, it's clear, he's used the word pshita, that he doesn't have yet the shechina. In order for the shechina to come, and I'm being careful in my translation, but in the literal translation, it's pretty straightforward. She'ein moy shechina klal. The word klal means at all. And in order to have the shechina, a person in being married, what the Ramak is teaching us by having a marriage in this world is having a marriage with God, with you and God, and having a marriage with all the worlds. All the worlds is female and male. The whole idea of Malchus is the female. The whole idea of the midos, the attributes, the intellect, it all works male and female. So he's saying that in order for a person to have the person here, so there's the way all the lights and vessels, that's all male and female. And the way that all works from the highest, from the beginning of creation. When I say beginning of creation, I don't mean when God uttered the word, let there be the world. But I'm saying that from the beginning of creation of angels and worlds and crowns and all the manifestations of Hashem starts with the concept of Oris V'Kelim, lights and vessels. Lights and vessels is male and female. And so in order for, that's the way everything gets created. But in order for a person, that means we're the end creation. Who is the last creation of the world? Is man, right? Adam and Chava, man and Eve, were created on the sixth day. And everything comes first. Like the Talmud, we learned this before. The Talmud tells us that anytime a person feels egotistic, even the mosquito tells the person, I come before you. I was created before you. So you're the last of the creation. But we know that it says Sof Maisa Machshavat Chila. That we say this in the Lichadodi, that the last action, Sof Maisa, Machshavat Chila, is the first thought. Right? When a person starts on a venture, it's not okay, let's see what happens. Some people do that. But if you have any kind of plan, you say, let's do something. What do you say? You make a plan. Now, you start the plan. The plan can take a long time to complete, but the end game is what you thought about in the beginning. Let's say building a house, right? You want to have a house. You have all the drawings. You know how you could show a picture how the house will hopefully look when it's finished. But it takes a long time for that to happen. You have to build a foundation and the walls and the painting. And then finally, when everything is done, when the mat is put in front of the front door, and you say, oh, this is what I was thinking about. So this is what God says. He created the whole world. And when man comes into the world, he says, Sof Maisa, the last thing he did, he said, oh, Vaychulu, now I'm finished. This is what I was thinking about. Because man was the motivation for creation, but he was created last. God didn't create man until after everything else was created. So man can't feel egotistic, and and humans can't say we come before anything. God, the mosquito says I was here first. And part of the reason is that's brought down is because also not just because man happened to be created last, but also man has the ability to be the highest or the lowest. Nothing could reach as high as what we can do, and nothing could reach as low as we could, God forbid, do. It means a mosquito does its job. It may be annoying, you may not like it. It doesn't go against God's will. God gave the mosquito a job, and it does it. A lion, it may be dangerous, it may be an aggressive animal, but it does its job. That's what it was created to do. Man was given free choice, and therefore man either can make the choices to climb up the ladder or to go down the ladder. And that's why we were created last. That's all part of the message that we're told. Because we could either destroy the world or to give purpose to the world. So here, so everything is about how the whole purpose of creation was that we should be in this world. That's why everything started. God wanted to have man, Adam and Eve, man and woman, to be in this world and to live and to bring godliness and light to the world. So the Ramak says, what does that mean? That man should have a relationship with God. And you can't have a relationship with godliness if you don't have a relationship in this world, with the family. That's what he says. I'm just quoting what he says. Until a person that gets married, pshita. He says it's obvious that relationship with God doesn't start. I'm not going to go. It doesn't mean that people don't have relationships with God who never get married. I mean, we have obviously many people who unfortunately never found or not yet the right person. We know there's people in the times of the Talmud who chose not to get married. We know we're going to learn about Nadav and Avihu who chose not to get married, and they had very deep relationships with God. But here the Ramak is saying in Tomar Devorah that the way he sees it, the Shechina, he doesn't say with God, he says Shechina. Shechina is the level of God in the world. So the level of God within the world. So if you want to get outside of the world, what did Ben Azai say? Ben Azai was one of the people that didn't get married in the times of the Talmud, and he was a great sage. And he says, I know I have to get married, but what can I do? My heart yearns for Torah. And my heart burns for Torah, and I can't do any. I can't even create a family. I don't have. If I create a family, it's gonna be a distraction for me. We're not saying it's right, but that's how he felt. But that's not having a relationship with Shechina. That's having a relationship with the levels of godliness beyond Shechina. But Shechina is the way God rests within the world, and for that you have to build a family. Okay, let's just continue. He says, "Ki ikar Shechina la'adam mitzad nekeva What is the Shechina? The Shechina comes to the person with the female. The Shechina is the female a level of godliness, and therefore it also is represented in the person's life by having a female having a wife in their life. Va'adam, and the person gets married. It says, "Oimid ben shtei nekeves." I don't want this to be taken, and that's why I was not going to teach this today, but I'm a person who likes that I start. So the it says over here that the person stands between the two females. What does it mean between the two females? Between the Shechina and your wife. So you have the Shechina, godliness, and basically what the Ramak is going to teach us is that how a person is in their married life is how Hashem gives to you in your life. So we said before that a person has to have yiras Hashem. We said last week a person has fear of God and know that when it comes day of judgment, you stand alone, right? A person doesn't come into God, hopefully, it doesn't come into God with a family, right? Each person passes hopefully in the right time. And hopefully the children outlive the parents many, many years, right? So when a person comes to the day of judgment, usually a person stands alone. So last week's class, we learned that the Ramak says, if that's the case, if you stand alone, you have to know that you can't rely on anyone. You're the person, you have to give answers. You can't turn to the right, to your left and say, well, us as a family made a choice. No, God says, you're standing in front of me as an individual. But here we're saying the way he says that the Ikar Shechina, the Adam Mitzad and Nekeva, he says, when a person gets married, then it's Adam Oimid ben Shtei Nekevas. He stands between the two females. Bein Nekeva Tachtona, between the lower female, meaning his wife, Gashmis, she Ishtai, which is his wife, that she, in the married contract of a Jewish married contract, a man, a husband is obligated to certain things to his wife. He's obligated to provide for her. He's obligated to have relationships with her. He's obligated to clothe her. These are responsibilities a husband takes when he chooses to get married. So those are the things that he has to give. So when the Shechina sees you meet your obligations, then so to say the Shechina meets her obligation with you. So it says he's standing between the two nekevas. The higher level of the Shechina is giving, and in the lower level, in the wife, it's receiving. But in order for you to receive from the Shechina, so you have to give. That's why he's saying a person has to get married, because the Hashem reflects how you want to have a relationship. Hashem reflects your relationship. And this is a little bit in Musar, this is a little bit forgotten, meaning to say that sometimes people confuse the two. They damage their relationships, thinking that that's the way they're going to enhance the relationship with Hashem, right? I can't wash the dishes now. I'm running to Ma'ariv. I can't. Sorry, got to run. Got to go. I got to stay in synagogue a little longer. I can't help with the kids. So right. So there's a lot of things that we use. Sometimes you're thinking that we're being more holy. The Ramak says it doesn't work that way. Everything you receive is because you're giving. If you're acting healthily in your marriage, then you're actually going to be a receiver from the Shechina. But if you're not giving ksus, oina, and she'er, you're not giving the things you have obligations to give. So God's not going to give you His obligations. And He talks in the way of female. V'ashchina made this love, and the Shechina stands above the person. Levarchai, to bless him. Bikulam, to give him the things that he has to give her. That God gives you, provides for you, so you could provide the obligations you have for your wife. So in order for that to be, you have to have a healthy relationship with, so let's say both. And he says, this is an idea, like Tiferes Sha'imid Bain, Ima Ilah, Lahashpia Loi Kol HaTzarech, Ve'ima Tatal Likal B'menu She'er Ksus Vayna. It says in the attributes, this is the attribute of Tiferes, beauty. Beauty is the ability in a person of balance. The attribute of beauty is the ability to find balance in things. Tiferes is the middle between kindness and severity. Being too kind is not the right way, and being too severe is obviously not the right way. But there's times you have to have boundaries, there's times you have to have severity, right? We say yimina mikareves, the right hand gives close, and small doichen, the left hand pushes away or kind of disciplines. So it has to have a balance of a hug and a discipline. It says that the olam, we learned the Gemara teaches the olam, a person should always be yamin mikareves and small doicha, always have that right hand that encourages, that hugs and the left hand that disciplines. And the problem is those who ever thought the need to be with two hands of discipline, right? With Shtei Yadav, he pushed them away with both hands, it says. Nothing ever good came from that. It says that even Rabbi Shuam and Prachya, when he had also Talmud, when that student later ended up, according to some opinions, and started his own religion that till today, and for many years ended up being a very difficult situation for the Jewish people. So that student was pushed with both hands. He said, "Get away." He didn't like what he did. He punished him. And from this, the Gemara learns that you don't behave that way. Look what happens from it. Nothing good comes from too much discipline. So Tiferes is balance. So Tiferes is, he says that just like a person has to be between the physical, material wife, the wife that you live with, the wife that you build a family with, and also the Shechina, the female that gives you, so too Tiferes is the same thing. Tiferes is the ability to give properly. Balance is the person who could give properly. And so Tiferes is not its own, it doesn't have of its own. It receives from Bina, which is female, from understanding. You understand what you're supposed to do. So your understanding feeds you of how you should do it, but Tiferes knows how to actually do it. There's what you understand you have to do, and then how you do it. And then so Tiferes is the kind of the receiver who feels all the intellect, that gathers it into a place of healthy balance, and then it's mashpia, and then it gives to the other attributes. The three obligations a man has his wealth, to clothe her, to feed her, and to have relationships. Those are things that the Tiferes does in a balanced, healthy way of a relationship. Chesed, what's that mean in the attributes? Kindness, din, judgment, and rachamim, and compassion. Kanoid, as is known. Now, based on, I'm not going to go into all the details, but based on this, it seems like the Tiferes is in the place of das and getting from keser, because he's saying this is the bina goes straight into the Tiferes, and the Tiferes is giving to chesed, din, and rachamim. So seemingly, like in this case, he means the Tiferes is kind of on a higher level than the chesed and the din, but that's more kabbalistic, and we'll just let that go. It says, but now he says that in order for there to be a healthy relationship with Shechina, it has to be a healthy relationship with your wife. Now he's going to go into that the way having a holy marriage is the way you have a holy relationship with God. If your marriage isn't holy, then your relationship with God is not holy. God provides everything we have. God gives us everything. Anything we have, we eat bread. And if we eat a kazayas, we eat just an olive amount of bread, we thank God for providing for us, right? So God provides everything we have. We say, Modani, thank you, Hashem. Thank you for everything. But is that relationship holy? Is that relationship holy, or is that relationship just give me, take me, materialistic? So here he says, God's not going to join the person if your relationship isn't in a holy way. He says like this. There's 3 reasons a person may, in certain, or not may, there's certain times in your relationship that there's separation between husband and wife. Ha'achas, liyos when it's her time of the month. Hashenis, shu oisek v'Torah, when he's learning Torah, those times. Avoidel b'menu kol yimei ha'chol. And this is, he's talking about, again, we're going to do this on a kind of a surface teaching, that there's times when you're learning Torah, and it's brought down in halacha that the true Talmud Chacham's times of relationship is on Friday night, not during the week. So therefore, when you're learning Torah during the week, that's a time there's a separation by choice. Separation of the time of the month is separation according to Torah. That's Allah. Hashlishis, the third time, when a person is not with his wife in intimacy, is shuhaylach b'derech, when you're not home, right? You're on the road. So when you're on the road, so you're not home. But nevertheless, how do you continue to have relations? So what do we have in all the 3 things? And all the 3 things of times that you're not together intimately with your wife is when they are either it's according to Torah, the laws of Nida, or it's because you're studying Torah and you, by choice, you and your wife have relationships on Shabbos versus during the week. And the third is when you're on the road. But what do you do on the road? You behave yourself. You're not saying I'm on the road, so I can do whatever I want. And you don't sin when you're on the road. Means what does it mean when you don't sin? It means you remember your relationship. That's why you're not doing anything you shouldn't be doing. So you're shomer atzmi min hachet. And it says these times when a person is when your relationship is there, but at the same time there's sometimes a healthy separation for progress. That's when the Shekhinah is most strong, connected to the person. It doesn't allow the person. A person should always be man and female. So when it's almost kind of filling the gap, that when the person has the relationship with his wife, and the wife with her husband, but those times that they choose or according to Torah they separate from each other, that's the strongest time that God says, this is alive, this is on me. This is the time that I'm there to make sure that your relationship is going to stay holy and healthy. So a Shekhinah stays with you. You're never alone. It means you're never alone, even as in a relationship. It means God is there with you, and especially when there's times that you guys as a couple are trying to grow spiritually and holy, that God remains with you both to make sure that it stays in a holy, healthy way. He continues. And God, so to say, mates with the person, being together with the person. A person has to be very careful. He should never separate from the level of Shekhinah of godliness. When you go on the road, for instance, person has to be very careful. What does it mean to remember about Hashem? To have a relationship with Hashem. When you go on the road, don't forget to say the blessings you have to say. That when a person goes on the road, we say the tefillah laderach, le'echaz b'Torah. Make sure you study Torah. That the God that watches a person when they're on the road is when you bring godliness with you on the road. That's why it's a Jewish custom. And the halacha that when a person goes on the road for a long trip, we say the tefillah derech. What's tefillah derech? We're bringing God along on the road. We're saying, 1 second, we're going on a long road. Long roads are dangerous. We need to make sure God comes along with us. You learn Torah on the road, so that becomes a Torah experience. When a person is studying Torah, God's with the person. Also, when the person's on the road and instead of doing things you shouldn't be doing, you're studying Torah and you watch your sins, and you study Torah. Also, not just when you're on the road, when your wife is in the time and month when halachically you should not be together. When a person keeps properly the laws of family purity, the Shekhinah is with the couple. It watches to make sure, the Shekhinah wants to make sure that for you to have a healthy relationship, both with your wife and God, it has to be in a way that it goes according to the laws of Torah. We have the laws of family purity. When it comes the time that she goes to the mikveh, or Bilal Shabbos, or it comes the night of Shabbos, or when you come home from the road, that's a time when it's a commandment according to Torah to have an intimate relationship with your wife. And that's when God says, you behaved properly in your times of separation. Now I'm going to bless you both as a couple with all the blessings. I'm going to open up for you all the gates of blessings. And he says, even not only that, he's going to open up the gates of the blessings of the souls, right? So when a person has relationships and hopefully that relationship bears fruit and there's children, that you have holy souls, that your children, right? It says that a husband and wife who behave holy in their relationship and intimacy, they bring holy souls down to the world. So therefore it says that the God niftach l'mayl l'kabel l'shamas kedoshos, God opens up to bring in the holy souls. And he says, Gam ishtei roi lifkoi daisa, ubezeh shechina tamid, and then when the wife hopefully gets impregnated, that's also part of the continuation of the relationship. Came Pirsha B'Zohar Parshas Bereshis, and this is all explained in the Zohar on the Parasha Bereshis, where there's obviously, like I said before, the commandment from God to be fruitful and to multiply. And he says like this. Now he goes into, again, we're going to learn it because we got to learn the whole thing. So he says like this. That also a person has to make sure everything has to be in its right time. We're going to learn the next chapter. The next chapter that actually the Ramak goes into exactly the times people should be doing things. When you should be learning Torah, when you should be praying, when you're supposed to have the relationship, when you're supposed to be eating, that different times of the day are different times of when a person should be doing different things. There's different attributes that shine in different times of the day. So the attribute of chesed is in the morning. That's why we learn in the morning. A person's supposed to wake up early and start learning Torah. So in the next chapter 10, he goes into really dividing up all the parts of the day to know when you should be doing different things. But he says in general, the time a person should have relationships with his wife, that the wife and husband should have relationships together, should be in the timing of when the Shekhinah is in the right place. That it should be in a balance between chesed and gvura. A person, you want to make sure, this is an interesting concept, you want to make sure that the time when the husband and wife are together should be a time when there's a balance of kindness and severity. If it's only in a time of severity in heaven, a time of din, so the relationship kind of brings din into the relationship. I don't know if that means that it's going to translate into having negative energy between the husband and wife, where the children are souls that come from a world of din, of judgment. But he says the Hainu Kashi Bein Shtei Zroyos. It should be time when the Shekhinah is between both sides. The Zroyos are the two arms, which is Chesed and Gvura, kindness and severity. Amnam Bizman Soras Hatzibur She'ena Shekhinah Bein Shtei Zroyos. And not only that, also when there's times when there's when things aren't positive. Halachically, we learn from Yosef the Tzaddik. The Torah tells us that Yosef the righteous only had children before the famine. The Torah tells us clearly that these are the two children, Menashe and Ephraim, that were born to Yosef before the famine. So the Rashi right away quotes, why does it tell us before the famine? I mean, why is that important to know when he had his sons? It's not just to tell us when they were born. But the Rashi says comes to teach us that in time of famine, you shouldn't be having children. Because if the world is in sorrows, if the world is in a bad place, it's not a time to bring children into the world. I'm not going to go into the halachic of this. I'm just talking about what the Ramak saying. He says, "Amnam bizman tzaras hatzibur," when the community is in a moment of tzara, of anguish. She'ena shechina ben shtei zroyos. And why would the Jewish people be in a situation of tzares? Because there's no balance. Chesed and gvura isn't working properly. Kindness and severity are not balanced. So then it's also, it's not a time for relationships. And this is also brought down in the Zohar, in Tikkunim Zohar, in Parshas Bereshis, in the Parsha, in the tractate of in the Parsha of Bereshis. Now he continues. Haroitzel davek im bas hamelech v'shleiti pardon menu leilam. The person wants to be with the princess. He calls the Shechina the princess, bas hamelech. Right? How does a person get a shidduch? You can't come looking like a shlump. You can't come looking like a messed up guy and try to get a date. It doesn't work that way. So you have to dress up nicely. It says you have to dress up in all kinds of, proper malbushim noim. You have to have nice clothing. My mother tells the story that she was once in the elevator in a hotel here in Jerusalem. And there's the two ladies were Hungarian Jewish women. It's a nice Hungarian Jewish woman. They're talking Hungarian between themselves, and a guy walks into the elevator. So the man tells the story to my mother. So he owned a pizza shop somewhere. So before he got into the elevator, maybe he was looking to find a shidduch, find a date in Jerusalem. So he looked himself in the mirror in his hotel, and he felt he looked really good. He was ready to go out for a night. He looked good. He was ready to, maybe this was the night he's going to find his shidduch. And as he comes into the elevator, he happened to understand Hungarian. So maybe his mother was Hungarian, maybe he was born in Hungarian. And the two women start talking to each other, and they say, "Look at this shlump. Look at this messed up guy. He really looks horrible." So so he thought he looked good, and he looked like a shlump. or they thought he looked like a shlum. Mother-in-laws could be, potential mother-in-laws could be very judgmental. So, but nevertheless, he tried to look attractive. What does that? But what does that mean spiritually? To have nice clothing, spiritually nice clothing. What are our clothing? Our attributes. You have to be a kind person. What does it mean to dress up nicely? Be nice. Have nice. Your judgment should not be severe. Don't be a hard person. So he says, "Heim tikunei midos," means have your midos, your attributes, in line. They should be in the right place. Kulam, all of them, not just one of them. You can't come in with a nice shirt and no socks or no shoes, right? You have to have everything. So you have to be properly dressed. Properly dressed spiritually means your attributes are in line. Your kind, your severity, your beauty, your malchus, your netzach, the parts of you that are even out there in the world to get things done, to be proactive, but all in a balanced, proper way. And therefore, when a person's midos are right, so then you could have a relationship with Hashem, with the Shekhinah, when you learn the Torah. And a person also has to, when they do the commandments of Hashem, like in a relationship, a mitzvah is a relationship with God. When a person performs a mitzvah, an action in this world of bringing Torah mitzvahs into the world, that's a yichud, that's a unification. So a person has to have consciousness that they're constantly, every time they're out in the world doing something, they have to have the kavanah, the intention that what they're doing is bringing godliness down to the world. When God sees that a person is spiritually good looking, your midos are right, your Torah is right, your intentions are right. So then, like in a relationship between a man and a woman, Hashem wants to be with that person. But this also, the Ramak says, is very important. A person, that's why you have to be very careful. When one learns Kabbalah, one of the reasons why Kabbalah was not taught before the age of 40, and one of the reasons why a lot of people were very careful with even the teachings of Chassidus is because, unfortunately, that people, like the Baal Shem Tov says, people could take it in the wrong way. So this is all holiness. This is about a person being holy and honest and holy with themselves in their relationship with God. So he says, all this only works if shitar v'kadosh atzmo. You have to purify and make yourself holy. And only once a person is purified and holy, then you could have your obligations of clothing, relationship, giving food, which are the three things that a person's obligated to his spouse, his wife. And now he goes into it a little more in detail. Harisha, and what does this mean in to be giving, like to give food? Lashpi Allah b'chol ma'asav shefa min haimin. Mizayna. What is mizayna? What is substance? Substance is to be a person of kindness, a person of the right side, mashpia, someone who's giving. Hasheni, what does it mean to clothe? You have an obligation to clothe your wife. That's part of the marriage contract and a Jewish contract. Is lachsei salal mitzad gvura. You have to use severity, which means boundaries. Shalai yishleit b'chitzayim. What is clothing? Clothing is two things. One is to protect the person from the elements, right? If you're cold or hot, you have to have the right clothing for the environment. You have to make sure bad things don't come in. Clothing is a protection, is a source of protection. Like a house protects a person, clothing is what's called makav hakorev. It's a close protection to the person. To protect in the spiritual sense, it means don't let outside forces, negative forces, into your relationship. And that's how you behave. And those are it's not just a person shouldn't have. Don't let the Yetzer Hara become part of your service to God. A person could integrate ego, respect, other motivations in why you serve God. Something that it helps you as a person, right? So you're using God for yourself. It says don't let that's called letting the Yetzer Hara, letting the evil side into your performance of mitzvahs. All the kind of things, whether it's for your own good or for respect, whatever it is, but by putting on a kasus, putting on a garment, protects that your intentions should be for the right reason. And then if a person allows the Yetzer Hara in, is the Yetzer Hara matzah b'isem mitzvah, then your deeds are contaminated deeds. So you purify yourself in the beginning, But if your motivation, your drive of serving God has its own motivations, then the Yetzer Hara comes in. It's not, these are not proper mitzvahs. It's an amazing thing, he says. And what happens when your person brings in an outside thing into a relationship? The woman says, I'm not being part of this. So in the same thing in the Shechina says, I'm not going to be part of this. And therefore, the Hashem kind of goes away from the person if they bring in ego and they bring in other motivations into the service of God. So you have to cover. You're not allowed to let in. The person has to be dressed properly and respectably and in a holy, pure way, not to let in negativity. What's the bottom line? Everything you do should be for the sake of God, without the evil coming into it. Evil, again, being not like you want to do something bad to someone, but evil in this case could even mean ego, respect, recognition, etc. And he says another way to protect yourself from keeping negative forces out is the mitzvah, he says, of tefillin and tzitzis. We know tefillin and tzitzis, when we put on, a man puts on tefillin, and the garment of tzitzis, it says, Hey manginim gedolim ba'ada shlayishlatu achitzainim. A person who wears tzitzis, if you ask yourself, why is it so important to wear tzitzis? So the Ramak says tzitzis literally is like a bulletproof vest. It keeps negative out away from the person. And a person should be accustomed to having those mitzvahs on you at all times. And now we're just going to finish off the last thing he says in Parak Chi, in Parak 9. And next week we'll do Parak 10, and that will complete Tomar Devorah. He says, Ashlishi, the third thing is, like when a person is in the moment of intimacy, is liyachtoy metiferes, to be one with the attribute of beauty of Hashem. V'oines krishma, kvis. What does that mean? What does oina mean? Oina means when a person has a set time in the relationship, when they have a set time when we are together. And so that, what does that mean in a person's relationship with Hashem? Consistency. A person should have oina, have a set time when you do things. Wake up in the morning, be on time for every day for the same minyan. Some people say, thank God I live in Jerusalem. I could pray in the morning from 5 in the morning to 11 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not a person that has a schedule. That's a person that's fitting God into their schedule. Oina means is that God should know. It says that, like the Tanya brings down, when a person does something 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, God depends on it, right? Like people become dependable on you, God becomes dependable on us. And if a person all of a sudden doesn't show up to shul, or if a person gives even $1 a day to charity, and then stops giving it, God says, "Whoa, we're talking. I was counting on that charity that you're giving. I was counting on those mitzvahs that you're doing." So oina represents consistency. It says, "Ba'oinas krishma b'kviyasitim l'Torah." Make sure that every day you have a set schedule of learning. You shouldn't learn. Okay, I'm going to learn whenever I have 5 minutes. That's also good. To integrate, to be spontaneous with God is also good every once in a while, right? Spontaneous is good in relationship, but a person also has to have consistency. And consistency means every day you have to have this time. Certain people, it's it's something that the Jewish people had for thousands of years. That a person has a shear every day, once a week. On Tuesday at 8 o'clock, I learned. That's just the way it is, no matter what comes up. So b'kfiyas itim l'Torah, you have to have a set times for Torah. When a person sets, again, you have to remember the Ramak is the Tomar Devorah is a very intense book, very intense sefer, very intense a kind of scheduling for a person. And he's very much emphasizes order in your life and consistency in your life, and he gives us strategies how to implement these ideas in your life. He says, he uses a very strong term. When you have a set time for everything you do, your davening is at a certain time, your learning is at a certain time, you make sure you're home on time for dinner every day, have order in your life, then you should know that when you have order in your life, you should not just think, okay, I'm a person who's organized. God likes organization. And therefore, when you have organization in your life, it's having organization with God. He says, this is the time of the princess. He says, he finishes off chapter 9, that there's different hints, he doesn't get into it, in the Tikkunim and the parts of the Zohar that discuss these issues of the importance of having set times for certain things. All right, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, nice Baruch Hashem. We finished chapter 9. Next week, we will do chapter 10, which he kind of gives us a final eitzah, a final idea of how a person should know. He said now that a person should have timings, know what different times of the day are good for different things to do, right? Not every time is the best time to do that thing. And he gives us kind of a schedule throughout our day when he feels, according to Kabbalistic teachings, are the right times to do certain things, when is the right time to pray, when is the right time to learn, when is the right time to give charity. And that will finish off the Tomar Devorah. Bye, Tov, everyone, and have a great week. Good Shabbos. Chodesh Tov.